think, act, and prosper. You are now tuned into the Money Level Show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Money Level Show. It's your host, Daryl Thomas. We're here at the New Orleans Investment Conference, and today I have Byron King, who has been just very prominent in the natural resource space and the journalist space in natural resources. I mean, you've had a lot of history working for Agora, who's been one of the biggest financial media outlets out here, especially independent, and such. And so
we like to say that Agora Financial was, because they've changed the name, but it's the largest privately run newsletter group, in the country. I don't know, maybe the world, I don't know. But we provide that background information that you don't get in your daily newspaper, if you even have a daily newspaper anymore, and if your newspaper has a business section anymore. And we are contrarian in so many ways. Whatever you get from the mainstream press, we're telling you the other side of the story.
Yeah, so you've had a lot of experience there. I mean, you were a geologist. You worked in the oil space, which I would love to get your take on oil, gas, and uranium here in a little while. But what are some things that you've learned in terms of? I'm sure that you've engaged with investor psychology, just the psychology of investors. I mean, being in a independent, financial media space and such. So what are some of the things that you've seen in terms of investor sentiment, throughout the years?
Well, when you talk about the investor sentiment, you've got your investors out here, and then you've got your promoters out there, and everybody has a story they want to sell you. They want to tell you and sell you, and it's kind of, I got this great energy, I got this gold mine, I got this oil, this oil field's fabulous. And you hear these stories. Every broken down geologist in Nevada has a hip pocket play. Oh yeah, this is the Walker Lane. They haven't mined it since 1942, or this is another Carlin trend here. There's all this. So the investors have to be careful about getting lured into these these promotions, because they can print stock faster than you can make money. You know what I mean? And so in terms of in terms of what do investors need to know? You need to know that you need to invest, but you really need to understand what you're doing. The idea of just, I heard this tip, or I saw this name, or I'm going to put some money into it. Really, just walk into the casino and throw dollar bills around and see which one land on which roulette table, and let's see how much you make doing that. No, you need to have an understanding of what are you doing, what's your sector, why are you there. When somebody says, I bought this company, and that's way up. You were very fortunate that you bought the company. But what was your plan? Were you trading? Or I was just going to buy and hold and sit on it forever. Well, forever is a long time. Even if you're just going to buy it today and sell it next week, that's a plan. If you're going to buy it today, hold it for, many junior companies need 18 months, 24 months, they need 3 years. If you're going to tie that money up for 3 years, and it's going to do this along the way, and might do this along the way. So the investors need to understand that in terms of investing, certainly in the resource sector. If you're going to buy Exxon or Chevron or something like that, that's great, big, huge, multi-$100 billion super liquid companies and everything. You can get in, you can get out whenever you want. And they're, Exxon, Chevron, the dividend is like sacred. They will sell their kidneys before they cut the dividend, So, this is good. Sell your kidneys, pay the dividend. That's great. I'll cash the check, But in terms of other, more junior kind of companies, you got to be really careful. It's a long way of trying to answer your question. Yeah, we could probably discuss it more as
you have a lot of wisdom and everything. You've been in this space for a while. I've been in it for 3 years or so. I have a lot to learn, and I appreciate you sharing this with me. And so you do some work with Jim Rickards, and I know Jim Rickards does a lot of geopolitical research and such. And so what was that relationship like? I mean, you have your background. I don't know how long you've known each other, but I mean, it seems like you both have been in this space, just in research space for a long time.
Hey everyone, sorry for the break in action, but I have to let you know that I am now an affiliate with Miles Franklin. Miles Franklin has been a bullion dealer for over 30 years, and they provide some of the highest quality service to their clients, as well as fair pricing on bullion products. So purchasing bullion through Miles Franklin not only stores wealth for yourself, but you're also supporting this channel to continue to provide free educational material for retail investors and those who may not be aware of many financial concepts that I discuss on this channel. So you can get started by sending an email to info@milesfranklin.com or calling 952-929-7006. Be sure to let them know that Daryl Thomas or the Money Level Show sent you, and I will receive credit for your service. I thank you all for considering this. Now let's get back to the interview.
Yeah, I first heard of Jim Rickards. I mean, I'd never met him. I heard him. I was in a bookstore and I saw this book on the shelves called Currency Wars. This was back around 2010 or 11, so like 12 years ago, something like that. Currency Wars, and I'm thinking, well, gee, I write a newsletter and I write about money, and heck, I was in the Navy. I'm interested in military history. Currency Wars, what's that about? Well, that particular book was about how you, instead of shooting missiles at the bad guys and blowing them up, you wage war against somebody by destabilizing their currency. You mess up their economy, you mess up their money, and you can destabilize a country, you can destabilize a culture doing that. Jim is in many, many ways an expert on that. He literally wrote the book, the original book for the CIA, for the Defense Department on, using currency destabilization as a weapon, as a tool of, diplomacy. A war is, politics by other means, what Clausewitz said. It's like, yeah, so is money, and you weaponize the money. And so I had, and the next thing I knew, I saw a couple of articles that he wrote, and then at Agora, one of our Agora people, they got a hold of him and said, hey, would you like to, would you be interested in possibly working with us? Next thing you know, he's writing for Agora Financial. Next thing you know, we're like sitting next to each other at meetings and conferences. And so I got to know him, and for quite a few years, I've written with him. Jim is what you might call the, he's the icebreaker. He's the name, and we advertise the heck out of him, and he does the macro, and then I'm more than happy to just sort of, I'm the boat that sails behind the icebreaker, you might say, just sort of, okay, Jim's talking about this and this and that, and that's, now I'll give you some really good ideas on gold companies or energy companies or things like that, because he has a big macro view, and my forte, you might say, is I go out and I, like mentioned earlier, I literally kick the rocks out in the field. I go out, I look at the projects. I mean, show me your core, show me your rock samples. Let's climb that hillside. Let's get in the helicopter and go to the top of the hill and walk down. Because I don't like to walk up hills, not at this age,
Yeah. So you're more in the micro, and Jim's in the macro, which makes it very.
It's a nice balance. I think we have a great relationship. I love working with him. Yeah.
That's good. So, oil. So you were an oil geologist.
I was a petroleum geologist.
Yeah. So I've done quite a bit of research in recent months. Recently had a Josh Young on. He's with Bison Interest, and we kind of dove into the weeds. Me and Rick Rule dives into the weeds of oil, and currently our inventory for the United States is the lowest it's been since the 80s.
It's in the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR,
the SPR. Learned the history of the SPR and what that was made for during the oil embargo. Yeah. And so, what are you seeing in the, because like there needs to be more investment. I mean, we had Exxon, buy Pioneer, and then Chevron bought Hess.
And the Hess company.
Yeah, this is like billions that's over $100 billion that in deals that have been dealt. And so, I see that as a big bet on fossil fuels.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts here. The culture, everybody out there who's watching, the culture, this, is like, oh, we hate oil. Down with oil, no more carbon, no more CO2, this is bad, we're all gonna be driving electric vehicles and stuff like that. To which I say, no, we're not. There's a billion cars, trucks, out there. cars, trucks, trains, planes, ships, everything that runs on gasoline or diesel. The world runs on diesel fuel, basically. You're not going to replace all that stuff. But for every electric vehicle that we buy, in the U.S. or somebody buys in Europe, or somebody else is buying a gasoline-powered car someplace else, but even if not the U.S. Look at how much money like Ford or GM is losing on their EV side. So right away, the oil business is around for a while, a long time, decades. It is a definite investment horizon, in terms of time, decades out in front of us. No matter what they tell you about how, we're going to do away with oil. No, we are not. Not in this culture, not in this life. Okay, not in this reality. Okay, so you look at big companies like Exxon, Chevron, Conoco, even guys that went down the green road, BP, Shell, Total, they're all coming back. They're saying, this renewable stuff, we're not making any money at this. Meanwhile, the oil business is a legacy kind of business. You need to be in the business to be in business. It's hard to get into it just as an outsider. And if you want to do the things you need to do oil, as in we're going to drill, we need pipelines, we need refineries, we need distribution. It's hard to build that stuff from scratch, next to impossible. And really, try building a pipeline. You can't build a pipeline anymore almost. They permit the hell out of you. They shut you down. And I say, how long does it take to build an oil refinery? That's a trick question. Never. You can't build a new oil refinery. The only way you build an oil refinery is to buy one that's already there and refurbish it or something like that. So the legacy companies that are there, and they have decided at the board level, and they're not stupid, that they have decided way up there. They have decided that we are going to be in this business for a long time, and we need more assets. We need more acreage. We need more wells. We want your pipeline. We want your refineries, whatever. And that's where this is all coming. This merger mania that we see. And another angle on it is that in many sun the renewable fad. And when I say yes, renewables have a place. The sun is free. Sunshine's free, the wind is free. The things you need to harvest the wind, the things you need to harvest the sun, they're not free. They're very expensive, and they are not environmentally kind. I'm sure you've seen this. Other people out there that are watching, you probably figured this out. Those windmill blades, those solar panels, whatever, when you get rid of them, what do you do with them? Well, right now they kind of landfill them. It's not like you recycle those things. They're full of cadmium and all sorts of other stuff. Things. So the oil business is around for a long time, and it's going to be around for a long time. They're spinning cash. They're generating cash. The oil refiners, the Valero and Marathon Petroleum, companies that have big refining operations, they are making money hand over fist, and they're paying dividends and they're buying back shares. So as investment ideas go, it's a very strong sector to be in, and it's very underinvested because the whole rest of the market said, I read in the New York Times, or I at the cocktail parties, people have shunned me because I say that I invest in oil. So, okay, great. You can be shunned at the cocktail parties. Go find some new friends. But if you want the money, you want to go for where that money is, which is in the oil biz.
Yeah, so there's a humanitarian case for it. We still have 1 billion people in the world without energy. And that's just one of the cheapest forms of energy. What's your take on offshore drilling and offshore production?
Well, I've worked in the offshore arena way back in my misspent youth. It's geologically it's fascinating, and anybody out there who's watching it, if you're wondering what should my son or grandson or granddaughter, what should they major in, tell them to take a course or two in geology and earth sciences. Okay, please do that. Study chemistry, math, physics. It's really fascinating stuff. The technology is astonishing for offshore development. You can go out a few hundred feet of water depth and still have platforms, but when you get out into the deep water, these big floating things that are dropping, risers, 4, 5, 6, 8,000 feet down just to the seabed, and then they drill another, 15,000 feet or whatever. It's really complex technology, and if you do it wrong, you can screw it up big time, a la BP and the Macondo blowout back in 2010. What a in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, now the other side of that is that, boy, that was one hell of an oil gas deposit that they found that blew out. They drilled it wrong. They had a lot of problems. But one of these days somebody's going to go back there and get that oil out. But right now the sector is despised. I mean, the U.S., the Biden administration hates offshore. They want nothing to do with offshore energy development other than they want to build windmills. Yeah, good luck with that. That's actually when you want to start to think about getting into the offshore. When everybody hates it, you can't give the shares away. Well, if you can't give them away, give them to me. Okay, I'll take a few. So now other places in the world still believe in offshore, and in fact, offshore of the country of Guyana in South America, like your South America and there's Brazil and Argentina. Up at the top, you got Venezuela, then right next to it is Guyana. That continental shelf off Guyana is prolific. I mean, holy smokes. I mean, Exxon is there, which is why Exxon's been doing so well. Hess is there, which is why, I think one of the reasons why Chevron bought Hess just, recently wants to buy Hess. There's the Chinese National Offshore Oil Company is there.
And Petrobras close by there?
Well, Petrobras is running off of Brazil. I don't think Petrobras is off of Guyana, but Petrobras doesn't just do Brazil; they do elsewhere in the world too. But yeah, the huge, immense oil deposits in those rocks, and they are that's a 50-year play there. They're going to be producing oil off there for forever. For our lifetime, years of mine, and guess what? They're going to load it in tankers and they're going to sell it, and people across the world are going to buy it. No matter what anybody says about, oil is bad. No, oil is really bad if you don't have it. Oil is good if you have it, but you got to do it right. And everything I say is I guess I'll just sort of mention my unmentioned assumption that everything you do has to be done very, very, very correctly and properly. And it's taken decades, generations to figure out, some of the bad mistakes, get rid of them. There is absolutely no room for lack of safety, for lack of attention to detail. There's no room for that. You cannot get away with that these days. You need really, really good people, really good engineering minds, great math, great physics, great engineering to make it all work. But you have to make it work if you want the world to keep running. If you want the planes to fly, the trains to run, the cars. And like I said, the world runs on diesel. People say, but my car runs on gasoline. Yeah, but the gasoline that you bought from the filling station, it was delivered in a truck that runs on diesel. The world runs on diesel. Okay.
There's always a way to win that argument.
I'll get back to it.
Yeah. So, do you have any take on the oil tanker market? So obviously this oil has to be transported.
Sure.
And pipelines and tankers play a big role in that.
Right.
So you have any take on that?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Well, I mentioned pipelines earlier. The companies that own pipelines own a very, very valuable asset because it's very, very difficult to expand pipelines, extend pipelines. People want to shut them down. So pipeline companies, both the gathering lines that pull the oil in from the different oil fields, and then the big trunk lines that move oil and oil product, the refined product. Those things are just they're gold. There's a pipeline, for example, that runs straight from like Refinery Row in Houston to the Atlanta airport. There's a branch of the major trunk line that carries product to the northeast that goes straight to JFK Airport in New York. If something happens to those pipelines, the planes don't fly. They're all those nice airplanes, those $500 million airplanes they're all sitting on the ground. So pipelines are great. As far as tankers go, yeah, there's a whole world out there in tankering. In the U.S., moving product along the coastline from port to port, we have the Jones Act, so it has to be a U.S.-built ship with U.S. crew and U.S. flag and all that. Makes it very expensive, so U.S. tankering is tough. International tankering, there's lots going on, a bunch of different companies that do that. For the last decade or so, the tanker fleet has been turning over in the sense that they used to have a lot of single-hulled tankers. Now everybody has to have double-hulled tankers just for safety reasons. Who builds tankers? Well, sorry, we don't build many in the USA. Every now and then we'll build one, but Korea, South Korea, China, and Japan. They're the big shipbuilders. But China, if you want a little China color here. China uses more steel in shipbuilding every year just to build ships for commercial and for their Chinese Navy. They use more steel to build ships every year than the U.S. produces steel. You know, I mean, we produce like 70 million tons a year of steel in the United States. China uses way more than that just in shipbuilding alone. So, big shipbuilding country there. So, but you know, another thing is that the Chinese yards, the Chinese shipyards, are booked solid with orders for tankers and cargo ships as well. But you know, I mean, the world is booming in terms of commerce. There's a lot of new construction, new tankers, new ships, whatever, you know, coming online, and they all need oil. They all run on, you know, bunker fuel or DFM, diesel fuel marine, whatever they're running on. They're not running on solar cells. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of tankers, I recently started investing in a tanker company that transports liquid natural gas. And so I know you've worked in the oil and gas. You know, gas usually comes with oil. It's like hand in hand, right? I mean, even when you're doing the barrels of equivalent, you know, like so. Liquid natural gas. You know, the U.S. is has a huge amounts of natural gas, correct? And so, what does that look like in terms of getting this trade across to other countries and such?
Well, the liquefied natural gas, the LNG market, is now pretty much a global commodity. Much of the LNG market is Asian. It's China, South Korea, it's Japan, a couple other countries importing LNG just because they just don't have the gas on their own. In the last, let's say, you know, 2 years, not quite 2 years, LNG has become a big European trade as well because, you know, they shut off the pipelines they shut off the pipeline imports from Russia, yeah, and then somebody, you know, blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Gee, who could that have been?
Jim Rickards.
Yeah, Jim Rickards. Let's say. Ask Jim Rickards. Yeah, and so a lot of that LNG is now going into Northern Europe too. You know. The U.S. is a big LNG exporter. There are plans to build more LNG facilities in the U.S. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. The big one is Cove Point, Maryland, I think, has a big liquefying plant there where they take the gas, they cool it, and, you know, it winds up as this liquid natural gas. And then they fill these tankers that are like thermos bottles, great big huge thermos bottles, and they sail them across the seas and they discharge it. The problem with LNG gas is that it's probably 4 and 5 times more expensive than pipeline gas. You know, like the Russians will tell you, and you know, and the Russians know a few things about this. You know, it's ridiculous for Europe to be importing LNG when they should have been importing Russian natural gas all along. You know, the whole, you know, in blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, that was somebody who was really, really intent on making sure that Russia doesn't, you know, export pipeline gas to Germany anymore. And look what happened with all this LNG. With 4 and 5 times more expensive gas, much of German industry has become uncompetitive. I mean, entire industrial sectors have shut down. In Europe, BASF, which is a giant German chemicals company, has shut down hundreds of facilities for lack of natural gas. The glass industry, for example, you need that energy to melt glass to make, you know, jars and bottles, things like that. You know, a lot of that's gone away. Entire parts of the metallurgical industry in Germany and, you know, in France they've become very uncompetitive, if not gone out of business. You know, just shut the plant, lay everybody off because of the price differential. I mean, LNG works if you need gas and, you know, you need those molecules. That's one way to get them from point A to point B, but it's an expensive way to get them, as opposed to just, you know, drill a hole and, you know, pull it out of the well and put it in a pipeline. But LNG is a good, strong commodity type market of global trade, and we're going to see more and more of it as the years go on. I mean, you don't build those facilities, you don't build those big ships, and just sort of turn them on, turn them off, turn them on. No, they have business plans that are looking out 20 years for the products. You know, you need your rocks in the ground, you need your gas, you need your gathering, you need your facility to liquefy it. You need your ships, you need your markets. I mean, once the tanker's on the high seas, yeah, you can radio the captain and say, here, go to this country or go to this port or go to that port. But it's out there as a global commodity. It's a real thing.
Mm-hmm. So the price of natural gas, it fell significantly. I think it's earlier this year. Do you have any take on the what this looks like in the future? Do you think natural gas needs to go higher, or do you see what does supply demand look like for that?
Well, okay, for a couple of years in the late 2010s, and then definitely during the 2 years of COVID, there was a lot of drilling activity that wound up in what they call DUCs, drilling and uncompleted wells. They had the rigs, they had the permits, they had the land position and everything. These are big companies, medium, little companies, and they drilled a lot of wells, and much of the natural gas, I should preface this by saying much of the natural gas that we're talking about in the U.S. is from fracking. Okay, and so you can drill and frack for natural gas as such. Just we want the gas, and it might come out as what they call wet gas because it'll have liquid, it'll have natural gas liquids in it. But that's okay. You separate that stuff off, but now you've got the gas. Other gas comes out as associated with oil, like in the Permian Basin. They produce oil with a lot of associated gas. Okay, so they gathered that gas, and then they had this fracking gas. For a couple of years, they were drilling holes, but they weren't completing the wells because you drill the hole way out there, you put some pipe, but you don't complete it. You don't do that final, very expensive process of pumping all the pressure down there and pumping all the sand down there and frack it open, and you didn't do that. But we've been working off that inventory for the last, let's say the last 2 years. Okay, when you say that, the price of natural gas fell, yes, because all these DUCs, all these drilled and uncompleted wells that started to come online in the Permian Basin or the fracked wells in like the Appalachian Basin, they started to produce because the owners are like, oh, we got this asset sitting here, we got to try to get some money back out of it. So again, why did the natural gas price go down? Well, because of too much supply. Okay, great, but what we haven't been seeing as they complete all these wells that were previously drilled, 4 or 5 years ago, as they complete those wells, they're not drilling as many new ones. So what that means is we're working off the inventory. And guess what always happens? We're working off the inventory, and all of a sudden we get to the point where like, oh, wait a minute, where's the next gas coming from? Oh, sorry, we haven't drilled those holes. So the price of gas has been down, but the price of gas could go up again. And then it's very dependent on weather. You have a super cold front. It's going to be super cold across the country for January and February with temperatures, way, way, way below freezing, everything, hundreds of, 200 million people frozen into their homes and stuff like that. Yeah, okay, price of gas is going to spike up on that kind of a thing. But if the weather guys come out and say, oh, it's going to be a mild winter and everything, yeah, all right, price of gas will drop. It's driven by the trading psychology and in the pits in Chicago or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, you truly are a geologist. So I'm ready to get into this next one, uranium.
Oh, uranium. Yeah.
So uranium. So I did a little bit of research on the history of uranium, how we led up to the first bull market, the bull market in the early 2000s, right, and then we had more supply come online from the decommissioning of like Russian warheads or something of that nature. Then that came to an end in I think 2014. Mm-hmm. So then we've been on. You had Fukushima. You had the mines being closed during COVID and the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so this created a huge supply issue. And so what are you seeing in the uranium in terms of the bullish case for that?
Yeah, the bullish case is in the markets. It's in the charts. I mean, I would say maybe 2.5 years ago, the spot price of uranium was, let's pick a number, $25 a pound for what they call yellow cake. It's like you mine the rock, and you crush it and you do this and this and that and that. You run it through the plant and you wind up with this yellowish powder. It's sort of like this, they call it yellow cake, but it's yellow if it's in a certain fluid. If you dry it out, it's sort of like brown. It's sort of like brown, like Hershey's cocoa or something, But yeah, so it was $25 a pound, like, I don't know, 30 months ago, let's say, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Now it's well into the mid 60s. So, I mean, it's way more than a double, in 3 years, And so, and it's creeping up, the spot price is creeping up. And you say, well, gee, why is that? Well, why is that is that, we had, you mentioned Fukushima. Japan shut down all of its nuclear plants in 2011, 2012. Boom, they weren't doing nuclear, and they were actually selling their nuclear stockpile into the market. You mentioned the ex-Soviet, the Russian nuclear warheads. They had this super highly enriched uranium in their warheads, so they would blend it with other materials, and they would, lower the grade to where they could make, nuclear fuel rods for civilian purposes out of that. Okay, that all ended. Japan is bringing its nuclear plants back online now. China has a very aggressive plant building program. And when you build a nuclear plant, whether you're China, whether you're somebody else, you're building the plant, but this is a 50-year, 75-year plant. So you need to think far. So you are looking for the uranium that you're going to be running that plant on. You're looking for that now. You want long-term contracts. You want 10 and 20 and 30-year contracts. You want to find mines and places out there that, okay, if I invest here, am I going to be able to get uranium out of you for the next 25 years or something like that? That's what's going on. And so it's a coming together of many different factors. But Japan's coming back online. China's building out. The nuclear stigma has kind of gone away in terms of Fukushima sort of thing.
War breaking back out. Russia produces 40% of enriched uranium or something like that.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Much of the world's uranium supply comes from Kazakhstan, which is a completely separate country to Russia, but or Russia, but the Kazakh uranium is all exported through Russia. When people say, "Oh, we don't like those Russians," well, you better like them a little bit, because the uranium from Kazakhstan, you don't fly uranium out on an airplane. I mean, you could, but you don't. It's really dense, really heavy. So you take your uranium and you put it on what thing called a train, a railroad car, and then if you're Kazakhstan, was basically a landlocked country.
For the young people that don't know what that is, we should have looked that up.
Look it up.
Okay?
Look it up out there. Yeah. You put it on a railroad car, and this particular railroad car is going to go through Russia to the port of St. Petersburg in like northwest Russia there, and then they load it on a ship. And for all it's really something. For all the Russia, Putin, we don't like the Russians, and all this. Yeah. When it comes to exporting uranium from Russia, there's a very comfortable, very cordial, very polite, very business-like relationship of, you put the uranium on the ship, and the ship sails out and goes to wherever it's going with the uranium. Yeah. So, and the U.S. imports something like over 25% of its uranium either from Kazakhstan or it's been processed at some stage through Russia.
There was talk about potentially a bill to ban Russian imports of Russian uranium. Did that ever come to fruition? Or?
No, I know what you're talking about. And people say things like that. That's sort of like, that's just rhetoric. It's kind of like, oh, we should ban that? Are you kidding? Why don't you just get a shotgun and blow your foot off too?
That's pretty graphic.
It's pretty graphic. Yes. Oh, excuse me, sorry.
No, you good.
Shame on me. Sorry, I take it back.
That one hurt. That one hurt.
Yeah, that would really hurt. No, that would really hurt though. The U.S. gets, pick a number, like depending on who you talk to, 22, 24, 26% of U.S. daily electricity. The little electrons that keep the lights on. We get 26% comes from nuclear plants. And if all of a sudden we stopped importing Russian, uranium, tomorrow morning, you'd flip the switch and the light would come on. 3 months from now, you'd flip the switch, the lights would still come on. 6 months from now, I don't know. We might have to flip the switch a couple of times to get those lights on. Just kidding. No. I mean that you would notice it. It's sort of as the supply chain started to dry up, and where else are you going to get it? I mean, we get uranium from Australia, we get uranium from Canada, lots from Canada, various other places, Namibia, whatever.
But the enrichment process, isn't that just like Russia owns, like it's in control over a huge percentage of that, like the enrichment?
Well, Russia thinks they think strategically. And, for whatever, a lot of people are in a Russia time warp. They think that Russia today is Russia 1992. They think that the Soviet Union just fell and Russia has collapsed and people are starving and nobody gets paid. And they're selling they're selling their MiG fighters or something out the back door to get pocket change to buy a loaf of bread or something like that. No, that's not true at all. Russia has spent 25 years rebuilding its nuclear complex. I mean, say what you want about the Russians. They're really smart people. They study math and physics. They have really good industry. That Soviet legacy of education, the Soviet legacy of heavy industry is still there. And they have completely rebuilt their atomic energy complex. I can say this with personal knowledge. I was actually in Russia a couple of times. I actually visited a very, very important Russian nuclear facility not far from Moscow. This was some years ago, but I mean, I was completely blown away and impressed at the quality of people and the quality of what they're doing. And in terms of, everything was brand new, and this is not some country that just collapsed and everybody's like starving, begging for bread or something. No, so they've rebuilt much of their nuclear complex. So in the U.S., in contrast, if you go to many a U.S. nuclear facility, I don't want to embarrass people by naming names, but I mean, if you go to nuclear facilities in the U.S., you're looking at legacy systems that are decades old. For example,
that goes back to that lack of investment.
That goes back exactly to the lack of investment. So the U.S. has a severe lack of investment. We're using old equipment, old. A lot of the people that you need, because you need people with like these things called brains between their ears. You need people who know what they're doing. And when you go visit U.S. nuclear complexes, you see a whole lot of people with like white hair, if they have any at all, and maybe you'll see some young people. There's an entire generation, maybe 1.5 generations, they're just not there. They didn't get hired, or if they got hired, they got laid off. And you need people who know what they're doing. In the whole U.S. of A., the whole United States of America, then the Department of Energy keeps track of this. There are fewer than 500 people out of 350 million people in the country. There's fewer than 500 who earn a living mining primary uranium in the United States. They keep track of it. Who gets a W-2 at the end of the year because they work in the uranium business? I mean, by comparison, there's 400,000 people who work for like Arby's, the sandwich company. They might be working in Arby's all over the place, but I just use that as a comparison. But there's under 500 people mining uranium in this country, and so the U.S. produces, in terms of primary uranium, how much do we mine to process on our own? We produce maybe 1% of what we need. We, USA, import like 99% of the uranium that we need to run our nuclear complex. It's a scandal. It's a political scandal. It's an industrial scandal. It's an educational scandal. You go to the different colleges and universities. They used to have nuclear engineering or nuclear physics or whatever. They don't teach that stuff anymore. And again, anybody out there watching this, I'm talking to you. If you have a kid, a son, a daughter, whatever, tell them to study math, study physics. When they go to school, just get into this program, because, you're looking at a lifetime job if you get out there and you know what you're doing, And it doesn't hurt if you join the Navy. I'm going to do a little Navy ad here. Join the Navy. Go nuclear power. I wasn't a Navy nuke. I flew airplanes, but I worked with the nukes. I love the nukes. And if you do it, I'm just telling you,
You were stationed in, close to where I live, and a few of my friends they work for the shipyard,
Sure.
and they build nuclear weapons.
Bremerton, Washington, and Bangor, Washington. Yeah, I was stationed in San Diego at North Island, right across from submarine base, and I was just about a year ago. A friend of the family's son graduated from Navy Nuke Power School in Charleston, South Carolina. It's a rigorous program, really, really rigorous program. They work really hard, and those kids are really smart. And we went to the graduation. You could not have asked for a better representation of the youth of America than these young people walking across the stage, getting their diplomas and stuff. It was so nice. They did it on it was the USS Yorktown, which is like a old retired aircraft carrier. It was a beautiful ceremony. But yeah, there is a nuclear program in the U.S. We do have a complex, but it's not strategic anymore. We're not thinking of it in terms of how do we take the resources that we have. The rocks are out there, and the ability to process it. The science is in people's heads. We know how to do it. We just don't have enough people, and we don't have enough equipment. We haven't put enough investment into it over the years. It's wide open. As a career path in so many ways, yeah. So we're way off on a tangent.
No, I appreciate that's good. That's good. Yeah, I just appreciate you coming on the show and everything. So where can people find more about your work? You have a lot of wealth of knowledge. Yeah. It'd be good for if people can find out a way to connect with you or find out more about what you do.
Okay, well, in the olden days we were called Agora Financial. Now we're changed the name. In COVID, we changed everything. We're Paradigm Press. We're Paradigm Press Group. PARADIGM Press Group. Go just Paradigm Press Group. Look at it, and that'll take you to the landing page on the web. I might say, and just dial in. We have a variety of newsletters. We got the $49 a year things and the $98 a year things, all the way up to the super expensive trading services and stuff like that. For a buck a week, $49 a year or something like that. You can sign up to some of these things, I write with Jim Rickards. I write with a guy named Zach Scheit. We talk about income plays, but I'm mostly focused. Just if you couldn't tell from the last 45 minutes of talking here, I focus on mines, minerals, energy, things like that. Like I said, I travel a lot. If I write about something, you can pretty much be sure that I have been there, seen it, laid hands on it. I have been to this project. I have picked up the core and looked at it. I've met the geologists, the engineers, So
yeah, well, as you can see, we're in New Orleans. The music is coming through. So
I see a tuba right down there. Oh no, the guy's going to start playing a tuba. Ah!
This is the home of jazz, right? Blues, all of that, right? So thank you, Byron, for coming on.
Appreciate to speak with you. It's so nice. Thank you, everybody, for watching. What a pleasure to be with Daryl. What a pleasure to be able to speak with you. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Take care.